Good afternoon. One man is recovering after thieves who were trying to steal a vehicle hit him in the head.
The vehicle's owner confronted the thieves in the driveway of a home in the West End. CTV's Janice Golding is on the scene this afternoon. And Janice, you talked to the victim's family.
Hi, Michelle. Yes, we certainly did, and I can tell you that the man is at home right now recovering, but it was a very, very scary morning for this family. Now, they tell us it was around 3:30 a.m. when their dog started barking. So the woman who lives inside the home looked outside the window and saw people in her driveway at her car. She started screaming. She says she ran at that point to wake up her adult sons, and then she turned around and saw that her husband was missing. She says at that point she walked out the door and saw her husband grab the door, open it, yank the suspect from the driver's seat, at which point the suspect, she alleges, took a wire that he was using to steal the car and started whacking her husband over the head repeatedly with this wire. She said he started bleeding profusely from the head, and then he fell to his knees. At that point, the son that we spoke to says he had run out the door, couldn't believe what he was seeing, saw his father in the driveway bleeding, saw a man hitting him, and so he gave chase. He said he didn't think twice. He probably shouldn't have done what he did, he says, but he started chasing him down the roadway. He sustained a couple injuries of his own, just scraped knees, scraped palms, but he did not catch the suspect, who he says took off in a black Honda CR-V. He says that he didn't get a good look at the man because he was dressed all in black and had a black hoodie on, but he looked to be about 6'1", he says, and was also in his late 20s. At this point, we are told that the victim, the father who lived in the home, was taken to hospital. He received an MRI and also a number of stitches to close up the wounds on his head. However, we are told he is at home recovering now, although we are told he does have a massive headache. That's it from us here in the Dufferin and Eglinton area. Now back to you, Michelle and Nathan.
Thank you, Janice. Still to come on CTV News at noon, there's a call today for action on conditions in city shelters. Advocates say the conditions are inadequate and inhumane, specifically for people who live with disabilities. We'll have that story a little later in the newscast. But first, let's take a live look at the city this afternoon. Not looking too bad. We've got some sunshine in the mix, and it definitely feels warm for this time of year. Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at the current conditions. How are we doing on the rain front?
Well, we're still looking at the possibility of wet weather today, Michelle, but once again, it looks like we're most likely to be impacted in the late afternoon and early evening. It's been pretty unsettled the last couple of hours around Kingston, Ontario. We've got some showers moving in off Lake Huron, impacting areas from Goderich north toward Kincardine. Here in the GTA, some cloud cover is clearing, so we're enjoying some sunny breaks, but I wouldn't necessarily expect it to be a completely dry day. Many areas are going to see pockets of precipitation as the day goes on. It's very muggy outside once again. 22 degrees right now, feels more like 29, and the winds are very light in nature. They're once again coming from a southwesterly direction. Here's today at a glance, going to feel like 30 at the height of the afternoon. And once again, that chance of showers and risk of thunderstorms is mainly for the late afternoon and early evening. We'll talk about what's in store for the rest of the week coming up. But for now, Michelle, I'm going to send it back over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Well, the Toronto Blue Jays are back in town for their last home games of the season after clinching a spot in the playoffs.
They'll host the Boston Red Sox tonight at Rogers Centre in the first of 2 home series. CTV's Rahim Ladhani has been talking to fans as the excitement and expectations build. Rahim.
Hey, Nathan and Michelle, good afternoon. You know, we're still about 7 hours until the first pitch, and we've already met fans from Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Kelowna. People are coming in from across the country to be here for the Jays' final homestand and to really soak in this postseason atmosphere. The Blue Jays are so hot right now, even the fire department's on standby. And fans from across the country are fired up too.
We should be able to get through these 50% on the next 6 games, right? To make sure we clinch first place.
We want them to be in first place. That's why we're here, to cheer them on.
Over the weekend, the Jays clinched their first playoff berth since 2023. And with 6 games left to play in the regular season, the team has their sights set on winning the American League East, which they last accomplished a decade ago.
They got what it takes, as long as they play good.
Even if they're behind, they are going to win in the 9th inning. We believe.
Let's do some math. The Jays' magic number is 4, meaning any combination of Blue Jays wins and New York Yankees losses over the next 6 games would guarantee the Jays win the division, bypass the wild card series, and go straight to the ALDS. It's an important step for the Jays to take. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016, and players would get a longer break to rest before the postseason.
They've had some spotty results in the last couple of weeks, but we're hoping that their pitching, the relief pitching comes through, and that their hitting starts to develop. I think they're missing Bo Bichette big time.
Either way, the boys of summer are bound for October baseball. Now, I know everyone watching wants to know, when can we get postseason tickets? Well, they go on sale to the general public on Thursday at 10 a.m. Already some tickets have popped up on the resale market, and we did check, and right now, Game 1 of the ALDS, the cheapest tickets go for about $260 a pair, so not too bad. Reporting live, I'm Rahim Ladhani. I'll send it back to you both in studio.
All right, thanks, Rahim. We'll be getting our first look today at the work being done to get BMO Field ready for the World Cup.
Toronto will host 6 matches beginning in June next year. And our Sean Leithong will be going on a behind-the-scenes tour in just less than an hour. How about that, Sean?
Well, Michelle, June 12th will be the day that BMO Field transforms into Toronto Stadium. The price tag for what's going to be happening over the next little less than a year, $146 million. There'd be a lot of excitement building up to the first World Cup match ever to be played in Canada. But what has to be done in the meantime is BMO has a capacity of about 28,000 seats. Now, FIFA, in order for a stadium has to have of 45,000. So we know that at the north end of the stadium, where I'm standing now, there's going to be about 10,000 seats added. And then at the south end of the stadium, they're expecting about 7,000 temporary seats that will be put in, as well as upgrades to amenities within the stadium, the players' areas, and beyond. So we're going to get a first look at what we're going to see today. We did manage to pull some renderings from the website of BMO Field. But those renderings actually date back. Get our first look at just what the construction will look like today, what the seats will look like, and the configuration going forward. We know that there had been some changes to the field announced for the CFL. It'll be wonder if that has changed anything at all, because the field will be much shorter for the CFL, and see if any of these seats will be permanent, or if, like they had said originally, that the seats will be temporary and they will go back to a smaller capacity afterwards. But it's expected to be very large what's going to be done, and the excitement, of course, will build going up to next June when BMO Field becomes Toronto Stadium and becomes a lot bigger. We'll have more coming tonight, but for now, I'll throw it back to you guys inside.
Can't wait. Thank you, Sean. In New York, Donald Trump addressed the UN General Assembly this morning.
And the U.S. president reiterated his support for Israel after Canada and other countries declared their recognition of a Palestinian state.
Now, as if to encourage continued conflict, some of this body is seeking to unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state. The rewards would be too great for Hamas terrorists for their atrocities. This would be a reward for these horrible atrocities, including October 7th, even while they refuse to release the hostages or accept a ceasefire.
Trump said world powers should focus instead on securing the release of hostages held in Gaza. France, the UK, Canada, Australia, and Portugal have all recognized a Palestinian state in the past 2 days.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is also attending the 80th session of the UN General Assembly. Carney was among world leaders who was in the audience for the speech by Donald Trump. Regarding Palestinian statehood, Carney says Canada and like-minded countries will work with Palestinian Authority, but Hamas would have no role in governance.
Recognizing the state of Palestine, led by the Palestinian Authority, empowers those who seek peaceful coexistence and the end of Hamas. It doesn't legitimize terrorism. And in no way does it compromise Canada's steadfast support for the state of Israel.
And CTV's Colton Prale is at the United Nations for us, and he joins us now live. Colton, all eyes were on President Trump today as he addressed the General Assembly, and he had a lot to say. What are the key points from your perspective?
Yeah, we knew going into this that the U.S. was framing this as a major speech, that the institutions, globalist institutions they called them, were decaying the world order. We expected this to be contrary, to take aim at the United Nations. And what you really saw were three key points. One, Donald Trump taking aim at climate initiatives, at migration initiatives, and also at his political opponents, whether they be the leader of Brazil or Joe Biden. He spent a decent amount of time taking aim at those political opponents, but it was the way he framed issues around climate change and migration that I think was particularly stark, calling green energy technologies a scam, saying that the carbon footprint is a hoax, that climate change is a hoax. He said energy and immigration are a dual-headed monster, referring to migration as the #1 political issue, saying that the United Nations programs are funding an assault on Western nations. This was very strongly worded and also, flies in the face of most of the beliefs of countries at this United Nations who are here to progress global initiatives and multilateralism, and that's not what we saw from Donald Trump. In fact, really what he was doing was taking aim at the UN as a whole, saying they had failed to do things where he had succeeded, pointing to 7 wars that he says he ended. Here's Donald Trump on that element, saying the UN needs to do much, much more.
Later, I realized that the United Nations wasn't there for us. They weren't there. I thought of it really after the fact, not during these negotiations, which were not easy. That being the case, what is the purpose of the United Nations? The UN has such tremendous potential. I've always said it. It has such tremendous, tremendous potential, but it's not even coming close to living up to that potential. For the most part, at least for now, all they seem to do is write a really strongly worded letter and then never follow that letter up. It's empty words, and empty words don't solve war.
Speaking with other foreign officials here, the Irish foreign minister, for example, was quick to say, yes, he agrees that the UN does need reforms, but one of the biggest challenges it runs into is liquidity problems. And those are heightened by the fact that the U.S. is no longer paying payments to the UN in its budget and has also pulled out of major programs like the UN Human Rights Watch and the World Health Organization. So reactions starting to pour in to that speech. Mark Carney made a brief mention of it in his remarks on a separate topic, saying he agreed with Donald Trump's calls for more sanctions on Russia, but did not respond to the claims against migration or against clean technologies. Mark Carney is giving a press conference later on this evening. I'm sure he will be asked about it then, and we'll see what the Prime Minister has to say.
Yes, a lot to unpack there. And speaking of the Prime Minister, certainly a lot on his agenda today. He's also co-chairing an event with Ukraine's president. Give us the lay of the land of what's ahead today for him, aside from that press conference.
Yeah, so that event that you're talking about is going on right now. Actually, Mr. Carney just finished speaking, as did Volodymyr Zelensky. This is a coalition that they both co-chair, calling for the return of Ukrainian children. Russia has been abducting and deporting Ukrainian children from either Ukrainian territory or occupied Ukrainian territory throughout the war. This is a group of about 40-plus countries that are working together to bring some of those children back to Ukraine to help them after they've been indoctrinated by Russian propaganda. This is an effort that Canada has been quite vocal in leading, and so that's going on right now. After that's finished, Mr. Carney has a pair of bilateral meetings with the leaders of Barbados and Haiti, and then crucially, a bilateral meeting with the Premier of China. This is very interesting. If you remember, just recently, Scott Moe, the Premier of Saskatchewan, and the Parliamentary Secretary for the Prime Minister, Cody Blois, were in Saskatchewan on a trade mission. Of course, we have those tariffs impacting canola, but overall agriculture and aquaculture in Canada. So that will be a very interesting bilateral meeting. We also heard yesterday from the Prime Minister calls to find ways to deepen economic ties in some situations with countries like China. He referred to clean tech as one area, especially where Chinese technology is very advanced, where the countries have similar goals, and that was potentially an opportunity to deepen relations while avoiding more sensitive areas like national security. So what comes out of that bilateral meeting? Do we see, a thawing of diplomatic relations, a closer connection between our two countries in the future? Perhaps some conversation around relief for tariffs, all of that going to be very interesting to watch for. That is going to happen a little later on this afternoon, though.
CTV's Colton Prale, live for us in New York. Appreciate you bringing us up to speed on all of this. Thank you. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency is one step closer to killing hundreds of ostriches at a BC farm about 2.5 hours east of Kelowna.
The RCMP assisted the Canadian Food Inspection Agency as they execute search warrants. The farm has been fighting in court for months to keep their 400 birds alive. CTV's Michelle Brunoro has the details.
Teams of RCMP, including a critical response unit, are at the farm in Edgewood now as part of a convoy of police and CFIA staff who arrived Monday morning.
We're here, our primary role is to keep the peace and to enforce the law if necessary.
The presence of authorities comes as the farm continues its 9-month fight to try and save close to 400 ostriches from being killed by CFIA after an avian flu outbreak here last December.
These guys are big and beautiful. They're prehistoric animals that have survived millions of years, but they're on the chopping block for CFIA.
The bird's plight has attracted plenty of attention across the country and across the border, including the U.S. Secretary for Health, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who wrote in support of the ostriches.
We're just getting an outpouring of love and support, like all these people here, and all we want to do is just see a better way.
Supporters remain outside the farm, but have left some neighbors frustrated and worried.
As long as their activities are peaceful, lawful, and safe, and do not impede the business of CFIA, they'll be allowed to stay.
Earlier this month, the Federal Court of Appeal judge ordered the cull must proceed, but the farm hopes to challenge that ruling. Police are not saying how long they will remain at the farm, only that they will be there as long as needed. The CFIA did not respond to CTV's request for an interview. Michelle Brunoro, CTV News, Vancouver.
At City Hall today, a call for action to make the city's shelter space better for people living with disabilities before the winter arrives.
Advocates are describing the conditions of some as inadequate and inhumane. CTV's Allison Hurst is covering this story and joins us now live with more. Allison.
Nathan, the group is asking that an audit be done on the city's shelter system and its accessibility, and they're asking that all of the conditions be upgraded ahead of the winter season. The shelter speakers shared the challenges they face when staying at the shelter with disabilities. One woman talked about how she's been asking that a shower bar be installed for 8 months, but she says she has repeatedly hit roadblocks. Another shared that she finds living outside in an encampment easier because there are no stairs. The group says the state of the shelters remains inadequate and inhumane for them amidst a growing housing emergency, especially for those that are homeless with disabilities, and they're calling for shelters to be made for everybody.
Today, we are making 3 straightforward demands of City Hall. Number 1, conduct a full accessibility audit by March 1st of 2026 on all city-run shelter services, with accessibility defined to include usability for wheelchair users and people with disabilities, with plans for improvement indicated. Number 2, immediately replace the 1,000 shelter beds and respite spaces closed since last winter by November 1st of this year, and ensure that these spaces are accessible and usable for physically disabled people with surge capacity for extreme weather conditions. And number 3, convene an intergovernmental task force to coordinate an effective response by November 1st of this year in collaboration with people with lived experience, to ensure that the first 2 demands are met and to build social housing rapidly to address the housing emergency.
They're asking that this audit begin now and be finished by March 1st. We have reached out to the mayor's office for comment. Reporting live, I'm Allison Hurst. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Allison. The search is on for an 18-year-old wanted for first-degree murder in the shooting of a Toronto rap artist.
23-year-old Shakur Clark Sargent was killed last week in Scarborough. CTV's John Musselman has the latest.
23-year-old Shakur Clark Sargent was an aspiring rap artist who went by the online name YTN Paco. Drake paid tribute to him on his Instagram, posting a photo of the rapper with the caption, "Rest in peace, Paco." He was killed last Monday night in a targeted shooting. It happened near Kingston and Galloway Roads around 10:20 p.m. A 21-year-old man has already been arrested in connection with this case. Today, police released a photo of a man also wanted in connection with this murder.
18-year-old Devon Ellis has been identified as the second suspect. He also goes by the name Devu or Devon. He is wanted on a warrant in the first instance, Canada-wide, for first-degree murder. To Devon Ellis, do the right thing, seek counsel, and turn yourself in.
Detectives won't get into a possible motive for the shooting. Police obtained judicial authorization to publish the accused man's photo that shows him when he was under the age of 18. That authorization expires on Saturday afternoon.
Keep in mind, one of the reasons we're here today is to try and generate more witnesses. We're still asking for people that are in the area to come forward. So I would ask that if you have any information, come forward. But to comment on the planned and deliberate, that simply means that this was planned. We believe it was planned and we believe it was deliberate.
On the night of the shooting, emergency crews performed CPR, but Clark Sargent could not be saved. He died at the scene.
John Musselman, CTV News.
Federal and provincial privacy authorities will release their results of a joint investigation into TikTok at a news conference in Ottawa this afternoon.
The investigation looked into whether the social media company is complying with Canadian privacy legislation, particularly when it comes to young people. The investigation also focused on whether valid and meaningful consent is being obtained for the collection, use, and disclosure of personal information. TikTok has raised privacy and safety concerns because of Chinese national security laws that compel domestic organizations to help with intelligence gathering. It was unclear whether TikTok is meeting transparency obligations. A news conference is being held in Ottawa at 1 this afternoon. We're getting new data on how economic global uncertainty is impacting travel here in this country. CTV's Scott Hurst is live with more on this. Scott, Stats Canada is releasing new travel data. Numbers from June revealed U.S. residents made more trips to Canada than Canadian residents to the U.S., the first time since 2006. What do the latest numbers reveal?
And Nathan, that trend actually continues. More U.S. visitors coming north as Canadians continue to shun travel. As compared to last summer, trips are down significantly. Of course, last summer was before U.S. President Donald Trump retook the White House and before he's really launched attacks against Canadians and the rift that has continued with the ongoing trade and tariff war. So let's break down the most recent numbers we got from Stats Canada. The number of Canadians returning home from the U.S. was down more than 32% from the previous summer. And breaking that down even further, there's a difference between trips by car and trips by plane. Of course, trips by car, for so many of us that live close enough to the border to drive, it often can be an overnight or just an afternoon trip where you can cross the border for gas or groceries. Those trips are down 35%, whereas trips returning to Canada by air travel, maybe further destinations to sunnier spots in the U.S., that was down about 16%, and those are often longer visits, longer destinations, longer vacations to the U.S. Overall, Canadian residents returned from about 3.6 million trips abroad. That's the U.S. and other countries combined. Now, overall, that's down, Nathan, about 24%.
And Scott, with that new data in mind, how's the ongoing trade war with the U.S. impacting travel between our two countries?
Yeah, that plays a big part. Of course, there are significant other parts. The U.S. dollar often plays a part. The U.S. and Canadian dollar, that often plays a part in many Canadians deciding whether they should go south. But the rift that has shown up between Canada and the U.S. is really showing in these numbers as many Canadians continue to avoid travel to the U.S. And it is a multi-billion-dollar industry on both sides of the border, and we've seen throughout the summertime, particularly the northern U.S. states that rely significantly on U.S. travelers, they are seeing an impact. I've been able to track down some numbers from the U.S. that largely back up the numbers we got from Stats Canada, and they kind of point out for every 40 international visits, it supports about one U.S. job. And so last year there were about 20 million visits from Canadians in 2024, making Canada one of the top sources of international tourists to the U.S. And that group said earlier this year, this is from the U.S. International Travel Administration, all those Canadian visits generated about $20 billion in spending and supported more than 140,000 U.S. jobs. So that shows the impact that this is having, Nathan, on the tourism industry, particularly in the U.S., as many Canadians decide to not go south and potentially travel within our own country.
A major impact. CTV's Scott Hurst in the CTV National Newsroom. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
Well, fall is here. It is the first full day of the new season, and there is so much to look forward to, including the changing colors. Let's take a first look at your fall foliage update. Algonquin Park now at about 40% color change. Muskoka anywhere from 30 to 40%. There's been some talk about our hot, dry summer and how that could impact the colors this year. They may be a little more muted in some areas. but we've got wet weather this week. Coming up, we'll show you which days you're still going to need the umbrella and when the sun is going to be back in full force. That's coming up in your 7-day forecast after the break. Stay with us.
When you see it happen, send it to CTV News. Text 10400 from your screen to ours. Text 10400.
Well, let's talk about it's the first day of summer. Maybe not a lot of sunshine, but it does feel still nice and warm. It's a
You mean
thing.
fall?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's feeling summery, right? With the heat and the humidity. And I would say like the start of the day hasn't been too bad, but you've been talking about this rain, and so the question is it going to wash out our plans this afternoon?
Yeah, so the possibility of wet weather over the next few days, I want to be clear that it's not an all-day event. We're not looking at a washout of a day, at least not in the short range, but the potential for wet weather is there really over the next 3 days. And once again today, it looks like it could be late afternoon and early evening that we get into some showers, maybe some thunderstorms. If you're hoping to get outside, though, this might be a good time to do it early afternoon. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm Injury Lawyers. You don't pay unless they win. Hey, even when it was raining yesterday, folks were out and about enjoying the arrival of the fall season. This was in the Muskoka area. In fact, this is a very wonderful place to be at this time of year, rain or shine. I just mentioned that the leaves are starting to change color, and you're going to notice that more and more as we make our way through the next several days and weeks. We're also noticing that the Atlantic hurricane season is starting to heat up after going quiet for some time. We've got 2 areas of possible tropical development, and with this, we're going to keep an eye on them because they could, one has a 90% chance of development, in fact, and could track close to North America. Here's what's left of Hurricane Gabrielle. It is generating some swells for Bermuda and even coastal portions of North America, but the concern now is that this Category 4 major storm is going to make its way closer to the Azores. So that's something that forecasters are keeping an eye on, and eventually as a post-tropical low into Europe. But yes, things becoming much more active in the Atlantic, and likely that's going to continue over the next several days and weeks too. Here's a look at where the wet weather is right now along the shoreline of Lake Huron and just to the east of Lake Ontario as well. A couple of disturbances are going to swing through the next little bit here, one along a boundary and then another low pressure system brewing stateside right now that could bring us some heavier showers and perhaps some strong winds. So there's around 7 p.m. tonight. Just be mindful of the fact that we could encounter some wet weather. Into tomorrow, chance of a few showers around the GTA in the morning. A good portion of the day looks to be dry, and then overnight into Thursday, this is where we could get into some steadier rain. The winds are expected to strengthen. Pretty much every day, though, it is going to be above seasonal and quite muggy. It already feels close to 30 in places like Windsor, Toronto, and Kingston. Today's forecast high, 24 degrees, feeling like 30. Possibility of unsettled weather into the evening, but remaining quite warm. 18 is our forecast overnight low. Tomorrow's high, 21, so that's a little cooler, but it is still going to feel like 26. Here's the 7-day forecast. So unsettled until Thursday, brighter skies beginning Friday, and then look at the weekend. Lots of sunshine and temperatures remaining warmer than normal. That's your look at the weather for now. Michelle, over to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. And after the break, there's a new scam targeting families of university and college students. You'll meet one woman who lost thousands of dollars after she was tricked into sending money. We'll have their story when we return.
If you've got a child in college or university, beware of a new email scam.
There's a new one aimed at post-secondary students, catching people off guard, costing victims thousands of dollars. CTV's Pat Foran has this consumer alert.
My daughter just finished high school and started University of Toronto.
Sandra Jordan of Mississauga says her daughter Ava Moss was excited to start university this fall. Everything was going fine, but earlier this month she got an email claiming a tuition payment was due right away or she would be kicked out of her program.
It states that she'll be de-enrolled from her courses if they did not get a $3,000 deposit by the end of that day.
The email appeared to come from the University of Toronto, so Jordan immediately sent an e-transfer of $3,000. But not long after sending it, she had concerns.
I just had this weird feeling that something didn't seem right.
On the university's website, there is a warning of the tuition scam, but the alert was too late for Jordan, and she lost $3,000. The University of Toronto told CTV News the university never asked students for payment through e-transfer or other private means. Jordan's bank, CIBC, said if you receive an unexpected request for money, you should verify the request is legitimate by reaching out to a trusted organization like your bank, or in this case, the university.
Whenever it comes to making any type of financial transaction, if you're unsure, hit the pause button, take a breather.
Ritesh Kotak says criminals create a sense of urgency, so you'll act fast. He says whenever you're asked to send money, slow down, ask questions to make sure the request is legit.
Sometimes a lot of these high-tech crimes, low-tech solution. Pick up the phone, call the university, and validate and verify before you send your hard-earned money over.
Jordan wishes the university would have warned families in advance about the scam. She says the $3,000 could have helped pay for her daughter's schooling, and she wants other students to be careful.
To lose $3,000, obviously, I'm very dedicated to my daughter's education.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
Now to a new warning about the growing number of rental scams.
Fraudsters are posing as long-term renters only to turn around and post a suite on short-term rental sites. CTV's Shandon Patterson reports on the problem and the loophole in a BC law that criminals are using.
So this is the second listing that they ended up putting on Booking.com.
Colbin Wong and his partner only learned her furnished downtown Vancouver condo was listed for nightly stays on Booking.com when her strata fined her for illegally operating a short-term rental. But she had just signed a one-year lease with a long-term tenant.
Seemed to be the ideal tenant, right? Good references, good credit check.
Wong learned that tenant never moved in. Instead, the man named John listed the condo for $500 a night on Booking.com.
We actually ran into a couple of the Booking.com guests.
What did they say?
They were just as shocked as we were that the listing was an illegal listing.
Wong says Booking.com would only remove the fraudulent listing when a guest complained.
Within a couple days, they were so well organized, they had another ad up.
Wong's partner Strata continued to fine her while the couple worked to evict the fake tenant, who they believe was part of an organized criminal enterprise.
They kept sending tourists to the apartment even after they were given the eviction notice.
Wong reached out to CTV News after watching our stories on condo owners whose long-term tenants illegally listed the units on Airbnb.
We're really glad that you got this out there about Airbnb. We also wanted to share that this was also being done on Booking.com.
On June 2nd, the province brought in a new law that was supposed to safeguard against this. It says only registered short-term rentals can be advertised and booked in British Columbia, and the listing is supposed to include a valid registration number. But all the fraudulent listings CTV News has investigated claimed the unit was exempt, which isn't possible for a downtown condo.
So they leave it up to the host, and a host can say whatever they want.
Booking.com did not respond to a request for comment. In response to an interview request from CTV News, the Ministry of Housing and Municipal Affairs sent a backgrounder on rules that short-term rental hosts and platforms are expected to follow and penalties they could face if they don't.
Until someone forces them to, I don't think anything will be done.
Wong's partner was finally able to evict the fake tenant, and she's hoping her strata will waive the $9,000 in fines she incurred while the unit was illegally listed on Booking.com.
It's been an extremely stressful situation.
Choosing another long-term tenant was also stressful. Wong hopes this time the person who signed the lease actually lives here. Shannon Patterson, CTV News, Vancouver.
Now to an exhibit in Toronto that reimagines an art gallery as a living garden.
A number of artists have come together for this exhibit. CTV's Jessica Smith joins us now live with the details. Jess.
It really is such a unique space. We're down here on Queen West. We're at 32 Lisgar on the second floor, and you have to kind of see it to believe it because there's video, there's plants that you can take home with you, there's human hair in one of the exhibits, but we'll get to all that in a second. This is all put on by Workman Arts, and you guys do a lot to help artists who are working through their mental health, to help support other people working through their mental health. What is Workman Arts all about?
Yeah, so to put it all in a short sentence, we're a multidisciplinary arts and mental health organization. We support artists with lived experience of mental health and addiction. And essentially we do that by offering arts courses, but also giving them presentation opportunities such as this one, being seen. It's our annual exhibition, and we hold it every year just to showcase the work of our artists, expand the narratives around mental health and addiction.
Well, Ty, this place is really unique, and I feel like I've been by this building so many times, so it's my first time in here. Fatma, I want to ask you about the artists, because we have Canadian-based artists that have these really diverse and unique backgrounds, but how did this all come together? Because each piece in here is so different.
Yeah, so this year we had a general theme that is mainly focusing about community care and sustainability, and the winning exhibition, which we have on display now, is called Tending to What Remains, and most of the artists are bringing their own personal, historical, lineages, and they work with different themes that is mostly related to the idea of the garden. And the curator, Manar Abutok, also proposed the exhibition space as a garden, and how we can tend to each other, care about each other, and nurture our community.
And even with one of the pieces here, you can take a little bit of it home with you. We're standing in front of it right now, but what was kind of the idea behind that one? Because you can take seeds back with you to kind of make your own garden.
Yes, so this work by Nadine Hajjaj is mainly focusing on archives, and how that most of the time sound archives are kind of forgotten. And this piece is mainly about her family in Gaza, and she kind of is sharing of her family, of her connection to land. And the seeds are mainly mint and za'atar. And you can actually cut out pieces of the paper behind us and take it home to plant it.
It makes it so unique that you can take a piece of art home with you. Thank you guys both so much. This is here until October 5th, and it is my favorite price, which is free. I'm going to send things to break. We'll have more news and weather coming up in just a few minutes.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
The Trump administration has linked the active ingredient in Tylenol to autism in children.
And the move yesterday is drawing some strong pushback from around the world. As CTV's Mike Lecoutel reports, President Trump's claims go against decades of science.
I want to say it like it is. Don't take Tylenol. Don't take it.
Flanked by his health secretary, U.S. President Donald Trump took aim at one of the best-known pain relievers. Trump's targeting Tylenol for pregnant women, promoting unproven claims that using the drug during pregnancy could cause autism.
So, since 2000, autism rates have surged by much more than 400%.
Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. pushed back against the question, wondering if that rise was because of a better understanding and better ability to diagnose the disorder.
If it were better recognition or diagnosis, you'd see it in 70-year-old men. I've never seen this happening in people my age.
It comes a month after a review of previous data which found evidence of a link between acetaminophen use during pregnancy and neurodevelopmental disorders. The European Medicines Agency has looked at the evidence and decided the findings are inconclusive.
It's turning out that we understood a lot more than a lot of people who studied it, we think. And I say we think because I don't think they were really letting the public know what they knew.
Ken View, the makers of Tylenol, said in a statement, "We believe independent sound science clearly shows that taking acetaminophen does not cause autism. We strongly disagree with any suggestion otherwise and are deeply concerned with the health risk this poses for expecting mothers." In a statement, Health Canada says acetaminophen is safe and effective for relieving pain and reducing fever when used as recommended, including during pregnancy and while breastfeeding. Mike Lecoutel, CTV News, Ottawa.
Next to Toronto City Hall in an effort to take the pulse of how taxpayers feel when it comes to how the city is being run.
The question, just how satisfied are you with city services? CTV's Natalie Johnson has the report.
From services and safety to traffic and taxes, are Torontonians satisfied with their city?
It's getting harder to live in Toronto.
It's definitely expensive to live here, and I would say feels a little bit unsafe.
I think our city needs to focus more on rent-controlled housing.
It's getting very hard, meaning harder. It is.
A new Ipsos survey conducted for the city finds 69% of Torontonians believe their quality of life is good or very good, up 5% from last year. On the City Hall scorecard, 61% of Toronto residents were satisfied with streets and transportation. 61% were satisfied with overall cleanliness. 65% reported feeling safe in the city. 81% were pleased with the parks, but only 50% were satisfied with park washrooms.
Torontonians are saying that they're feeling the improvements to the city after many years of neglect, and what I'm proud of is that we are sharing that seriousness and that commitment with them.
These numbers show that there's a lot of room for improvement. And when you're getting a D+ or a C- on core services, I'm sorry, I don't think that's good enough. And I don't think the vast majority of Torontonians think that's good enough either.
Once again this year, the top city issue cited by Torontonians as needing the most attention was housing, with a full quarter of respondents saying that should be the priority for local leaders. Transportation, including traffic and transit, ranked second as the top concern, followed by crime.
I'm not satisfied with the results of this survey, but year over year, we're getting a little better.
The city manager promising these numbers will help focus both directives and dollars moving forward.
It's not just paper that sits on the shelf. We're actually going to use it around some of our investment strategies of the budgets we already have.
As officials take stock of what's working and what's not in the eyes of taxpayers who will vote on the city's next direction next year. Natalie Johnson, CTV News.
Coming up, a campaign aimed at getting girls to continue playing sports in their teenage years.
Ontario Provincial Police are trying to identify a motorcyclist seen performing stunts on Highway 400 near Barrie. The video, taken Sunday evening, shows the rider sitting sideways there, kicking both feet in the air off the side of the bike, speeding along the shoulder, and even standing on the seat while holding the handlebars. Police were called, but they were unable to locate this motorcyclist. Anyone who recognized them is asked to come forward. Half of Canadian girls stop participating in sport by the age of 17, and that's according to data from Canadian Women in Sport.
Now there's a new campaign aiming to turn that number around. CTV's Emma Convey reports.
Throughout her childhood, Ayushi Korean was quite active in sports. When she started university, the pressures of school and a part-time job forced her to take a step back.
I used to do like marathons and stuff like that. And like I was like in the basketball team, so we used to go for like inter-school competitions and stuff. Yeah, so it was like, it feels like ages ago.
She's not alone. Figure skating coach Stephanie Steele says the teen years are when she sees skaters slow down.
There's just so much pressure on them from all aspects of life, school, etc. So I think just really trying to make sure that they know that we're always here for them, whether or not that means they're skating 5 days a week or cutting it down to accommodate their schedule.
According to Canadian Women in Sport, by age 17, half of girls aren't even playing sports anymore. A reason the national campaign Get Girl Coached was launched.
Girls are being asked to adapt to a sports system that wasn't really designed to serve them. And so they bump up against coaches that don't fully understand them. They run into lack of resources or inequitable resources.
And they're missing out on the benefits.
We want to really rally sport leaders all across Canada to get girl coached, which means really listening to the girls, understanding their experience and their wants and needs, and then taking action.
Work ethic, discipline, self-motivation, and working as a team, even in an individual sport.
I like about hockey that I get to stay active and stay in shape, and I like that I meet a lot of new friends.
Alyssa Ivany started playing hockey at 4 and has no plans to stop.
I want to at least make it to college so I can get a scholarship to hopefully a really good university so I can be a doctor.
As for Ayushi, She plans to return to the track after she graduates university.
That adrenaline rush, like before you have like a big sport or like a big race, just that just makes me feel like really good. So I think, yeah, I would want to go back.
Emma Convey, CTV News.
Great story. So many benefits of playing sports.
Oh, just the camaraderie, hanging out with your friends. It's the best. Weather-wise, not the best today, but there are really nice days to come, and maybe the rain will hold off.
And there's pockets of nice weather in and among these unsettled days that we're dealing with this week. It's definitely been a pattern change, but it is still quite warm and muggy outside right now. Here's one more look at the satellite and radar. We're starting to get a few showers impacting the south end of Georgian Bay, around Meaford and the Blue Mountains, for example. Overnight tonight, possibility of showers, slight risk of thunderstorms. That's more so for the evening as opposed to the overnight, but the overnight low around 17 degrees. That's very warm for this time of year. 21 degrees tomorrow. That's not quite as warm as today, but it's still going to feel like 26. And temperature-wise, we remain above seasonal right into the weekend. Speaking of the weekend, look at that sunshine. Nathan and Michelle.
Looks good. Thanks, Lindsay. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. All right, got it out.